Hello and welcome back to another episode here at Scriptcase by Jamie. And that is me, of course, Jamie, your host, here to show you how to use Scriptcase, sharing the latest updates, opinions and more, of course. And today's episode, we want to continue, I want to continue discussing the new production environment a little more with you. And there's a few things here because last time, of course, we went through pretty much everything that is there, but I want to cover some of it a little more today. So what I'm going to do is I have Scriptcase open and I have here already deployed there just as a test, but I've just emptied this folder. So I have here locally now 3 folders, dep 1, dep 2, dep 3. So you may be able to guess already what we will be doing. So we have our Scriptcase environment. I have here my project, which is of course the project we are currently developing on the channel, and you can access this as a member within the knowledge base. Okay, so with this project, I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. So of course, you can follow along with any project you have. It doesn't have to be this project. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do is choose all applications. I want to deploy all of them in one go. And I am also going to choose a typical recommended deployment. So I will go next. Now here, I want to deploy with the production environment because it's going to be the first platform that I deploy on this environment. Or on this hosting server, should I say, or server, wherever you are deploying your project. Of course, that is what I'm doing now. Okay, so very similar. So one of the new options we have here is to generate a page containing a link to the initial application. Now, I should note, or maybe I did not note it very well previously, but that is in fact the new index page. Now for myself, that is a little confusing, and I hope somebody from Scriptcase is watching, because if I come up here to my project and project property, I am using an index page here. And I actually did start creating, because again, this is one of those videos where I have re-recorded it a few times already. And the first time I had actually gone through this and I wanted to actually test what the difference would be without realizing that I was already using an index page. So that for me is a little confusing, okay? But I do hope somebody from Scriptcase there is listening and of course, make some adjustments there, because I have an index page selected there. My application should be the index page, not this page. So something needs to be changed there so that after the creation or the initial deployment of the application, that page is removed, because as we will see shortly, that page stays there. And yeah, it's not good. It's messy. Okay, it's really not good. So either way, we will see that as we continue today. We'll discuss it a little, and I do hope that somebody there from SC is watching and hopefully applies a little more thought on this and hopefully a better process. Because of course, if I have an index page selected, then that needs to be my index page. There is no ifs or buts about that. Not choosing something else here, and that changes then the setup or deployment of my project. I'm sorry guys, but that is just wrong. Okay, so in my opinion anyway. Now if you think differently, please let me know in the comments. Let me know, tell me in the comments what you think of this. Is this right? Does it make sense? And let's continue. Okay, so I will leave this selected for especially this purpose that I just mentioned. I have an index page selected there. So my first page I have selected should be my index page, nothing else. Okay. Okay, for the deployment. Yes, okay, for the deployment. But then afterwards, that needs to be my index page. There are no ifs or buts. I don't want to be giving them a link for another application, okay? Because that is, again, something I had left out during the previous video. Once your platform has been set up, as you will see, you don't give them the index URL. You give them the URL for that application because, of course, we've just replaced our index page. Again, does it make sense? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so I will go ahead and click next. And I'm going to go ahead and deploy directly here to my folder. Okay, so that is here locally within my WAMP64 folder, www department 1 or deployment 1. So that's where I have this, and that is now where those files are going to end up. So that is where my project is, and of course I have the page ready here, and that is then the local host or 127 and dep1. So once that has finished deployed, what we will do then is deploy again, this time without the production environment. And of course, we are going to go ahead and set that up. But first, we will set up the main one. And the reason for that is, well, you'll see in a few moments. Now we need to remember, of course, that during this deployment, we are not only deploying our applications, we are also deploying the entire production environment, all the libraries, all the images, and anything to do that we have within the tools, let's say, of Scriptcase. So all of these applications are generally pretty quick, and as we see here, the common files is then what takes the longest. Next up would then be the production environment. Okay, so those two sections, the common files and the production environment, of course, take up the majority of space. The rest of these, they are transferred and processed so fast, okay? Very fast, 0.35 seconds. What is that? You don't really notice that. Okay, but as a total, of course, it adds up. Okay, so that has been deployed. Let me check here in the folder. That is there, okay, excellent. So what I want to do is also go ahead and deploy for an advanced deployment without the production environment. But first, I want to actually set up the initial production environment or the initial platform that we've just deployed. So starting off, remember, this is now our index page. So access initial application. This is now our index page. We need to click on that and it's going to come straight to my menu. The reason for that is because I have no security. And of course, now when I come here to choose an application, it needs to create a connection. Now, my applications here require the connection, my menu does not. And that is why my menu is loading. So that may be a little confusing if, for instance, you are using a login page as the first page. And in that case, you will only be seeing here, create connections. So I'll go ahead, create the connection here. So it is Scriptcase to log in. That is always the default password for the production environment on first deployment. So if I log in, now I can choose to add some new details. So here I have a recovery email address. So I'll add the help@ScriptcaseByJamie.com. And I need to add a new password. So I believe I had something. So I do have here a super long password. So hopefully I don't lose it anywhere. But that is what I'm going to apply. And remember that we now need to have the specific definitions within our password, so a minimum of 8 characters, which again we can define within the back end. Okay, but that is of course for the user login within security. That is not the same as now here within the production environment. The production environment is locked to this. Okay, so you cannot actually change this within the back end of Scriptcase. Now if I come here and update, that will then go ahead and add, of course, my database. So start to create the connection. So from here I can create my connection. So I have that here, pending connections. Let me go ahead and add that. So that is locally, I'm loading root, there is no password, and then I can just choose then here the database. So very easy, because of course I have no password set or anything else, and that's why sometimes developing locally is just so much easier. You don't have to worry about some of those extra complications, security risks, and issues that you may have to deal with online. So now with that saved, I can save that. Okay, so yes, as it says, I should refresh my applications. So now if I come here to production settings, I have here first of all my temporary files directory, and I have here my cache files directory. Okay, so we would then also want to use this within our other deployment. So let's return now to Scriptcase. Okay, so before we continue, I want to come here first of all to the files and check here in the library and conf folder and make sure it has actually created the new configuration. Now it hasn't removed the new connection yet, I see that. Now that may occur after I log back in again. So I'm just going to go through the other settings. We have here our applications directory. We will configure that in a moment. We have here also our incompatible applications. Now I won't click on the update because that's actually connecting then to the server of Scriptcase, and the platform does need to be online for that, and at the same time it slows down a little bit because of course I'm not online. So I will skip that and just make sure we have here our connection configured within edit connection. Okay, so if I have any connections within the production environment, they will all be displayed here. Now within the rename connection, I can choose a connection and then just simply apply a new name to that connection. For pending connections, we don't have any more because that is only during the configuration stage of the connection. Okay, so we are pretty much set up. Let's come back into Scriptcase and go next on our deployment. Now this time we want to specify an advanced deployment. Go next. We can add here a template name, and I will call that local so that it is for my local environment. Click next. And now I have here the common libraries folder, the images folder, the temp folder, as well as the documents folder. Now I want to change all of these so that they end up within here my dep 1. Okay, so that is actually the path that I want to go to. So here I'll say dep 1, dep 1, dep 1, and then here for the documents folder also dep 1. Okay, so I could of course store the documents or the temporary folder or the images within this platform, i.e. in that case I would call that dep2, dep2, dep2 instead. But in this case I want to store everything within that one initial platform. Okay, so with that I can again choose the initial application, generate a page containing a link to the initial application. So I will go ahead and, well, say next. Okay, so I need to choose my connection, or should I say name my connection. So I can rename it here. I will leave it as con.mysql. Next, again, I will choose then the directory to which we want to deploy this project. Now this time I want to deploy that to dep2. Again, I will go next. So this time you'll see that the deployment to that folder or to that location is in fact much faster because it will not be including the production environment. So here we have 10 seconds or 10.26 seconds for the common files. So it's actually 10 seconds and then milliseconds. Okay, so 0.02 milliseconds to create an application, a blank application. For a grid, 0.12. Okay, that's really no time whatsoever. And then the overall processing time is literally 11 seconds, which is, yeah, pretty awesome. And now, of course, if I come back here into my dep2 folder, now I have my applications there, and now I want to also apply the same here to my dep3. So again, I will go ahead and deploy my project once again. Go all, advanced again, choose the template that I had just created because, you know, that saves me allowing to configure everything again. Now, in this case, I do not want to deploy to the same folder. We have then all of the locations the same, which we actually want to maintain. We can click then on next and then the connection and next again. And now we just choose a new location for our deployment, which in this case is then the dep3. So here I'll just go next. And now, of course, all of those files, as you see, are already there. Within dep3, the common files are still being exported, and within 7 seconds, they are all there. Okay, so if I now come here to my dep1, we have our environment set up. So what I would do is I will actually open a different browser. So let me open Firefox here. And in Firefox, we see now with dep1, we still have this page. Okay. So what we actually need to do is direct them to the actual application. And if I come here now to my applications, I can now view the applications as I should be able to. So whenever you now access the root, you will always have this access initial application, even though you have it set to display an index page, i.e. your main application. So I hope again somebody from Scriptcase is hearing that loud and clear and hopefully makes an adjustment there to allow for that index page. During the deployment, of course, it's great. So now we've checked that out. Let's go ahead and also here to our dep2 and also load here our dep3. Okay, so in our dep2, we there see straight away we have some errors. It's not loading our applications. Now, I'm seeing here is going here to dep1 production lib. So let's double check that here. Dep lib dep1. No, see, that's not already giving us a different path. So the path I just added there is not actually correct, look, because it's going to dep1 and then applying production when in fact the production is inside of the department 1. So what I'm going to do then is return back here into our Scriptcase environment and deploy again. And that's of course a bit of a shame, but I guess that's the way it goes. So if we go advanced again, let's check this. dep1 file temp file doc. Okay, so here our production environment. Let's check that again because our production environment is coming then here. We have then our underscore lib, and that is then where the production environment is. So then we just go here underscore lib / production environment, and we also want to apply that here to our dep1 file, dep1 temp, and also here the dep1 file at the bottom here. Okay, so with that now correctly configured, because as we've seen just now, we've got those paths incorrect, not so good for this video, right? But I'm going to leave it in there because, well, that's the way it goes. Right, so if we go next again, and of course now we deploy here to the dp3 or dep3, and then we want to also again adjust that and deploy that to dep2, correcting those as well. So deploy all applications, advanced next, edit, and we have then the same locations. That's correct. dep1 underscore lib. So that's correct now. Next, and then we adjust here to dep2, and next again. And there we will be deploying our applications again. Okay, so within a few moments, we should be able to then have a look at then the Firefox environment. So let's have a look here. So dep1, here we have our department 2 menu. Here we have our department 3. Now, if I come then to the applications, we see then that all of the applications now are already working because they are using, of course, our first environment and the first connection. Remember, the connection name was the same. Okay, so here within our production environment, it is important to note that, of course, we have then separate connections. So if you are wanting separate connections for each of your platforms, in this case, I have deployed the same project, and that is why I kept the connection name the same. Now, in your case, you may want to change the connection name if each project is a new one. So here, for instance, we could go ahead and create a new connection and then assign that to the different projects. But first, let's come back here to our production settings, because one important factor here is always the PHP time zone. We need to include that so that our platform works nicely. So I don't want to have any errors in between other than those that I just cause randomly. So I'll just go Europe, London, save that, close. Okay, so now we want to define our applications directory. So I will copy here the original path, so our first project, go new, and there add dep2, confirm that, okay, and then add another one, and that was then the dep3, confirm that also, and that has been saved. And now when I come here to incompatible applications, I can check all of my platforms that I have deployed using the same production environment, and then also make sure that all of the applications are okay. So as you see there, if I click on that, check that, it's saying verification successful. And then we have here our last check, compatible deployment, 0 applications. Okay, and of course, if I come here to update production environment, it will then update the production environment. So this backend platform. Okay, so I think that is about it for this video. With that, we have pretty much seen that we can have multiple platforms all running with the same production environment. For instance, here, the department 3, department 2, or deployment 2 and deployment 3, as well as then our first deployment. And remember also, our index page is no longer our index page, which, I don't know, to me is actually a little scary. But okay, there we have our menu. And okay, so now we then, within our first deployment, also have our applications running. So do remember that you need to then pass them the URL for the application that you are running first. The properties option you have here are saying that you want to use an index page is now, I hope, not obsolete, because for me it's actually quite important to have the index page as the application I have specified within the project. Again, let me know how you feel in the comments. Maybe I'm just a lonely soul, and I'm also, of course, very happy with that. So whatever it is, that is now how we need to use our projects. So when you deploy them, you've seen it now, you need to give them the full URL, essentially app_login menu, or whatever the initial application title is that you have provided. On top of that, don't forget, you can also deploy your applications to multiple platforms and have one production environment, speeding up deployment, speeding up updates, easier to manage, and so forth. Of course, if that doesn't make sense to you, it for sure does to me. If that makes any sense at all. Okay, so that is it for this week. I hope you have enjoyed this video and extra addition to the production environment. Of course, keep watching, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment, let me know what you think about this video. If you liked me complaining about this, if you didn't like me giving some brutal, honest opinion, that is, of course, your opinion, and I'll be happy to discuss that with you. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next video.